using this rule, what you can see is when you take the square root of 3 minus 1, you don't need to know exactly what it is to know, is this overall value going to be a positive number or a negative number? Positive, right? So that fits this top category. So all we need to do to evaluate this is write root 3 minus 1. You need to write your exact answer like that. It's not asking for decimal forms. Okay? But if we did it the other way, if we were given 1 minus root 3, so here we know that this negative, or the root 3 is a negative number. It's a greater value than 1. So overall, this would be a negative number. So the way that you would have to evaluate it is you'd have to imagine you're taking the opposite of 1 minus root 3. And so if you pull that out of the absolute values and distribute your negative, you get negative 1 plus root 3. Or the easier thing to do, and what you'll see most of the time here, is you'll just flip the order of them. Root 3 minus 1. Notice it winds up being the same as what we got up here. Okay, but if you change the order of this, or change the sign of each term, you can reorder it and put the positive 1 first. Okay, so the same is going to happen with pi. So if you took pi minus 3, is that overall value going to be a positive number or a negative number inside the absolute values there? Bless you. It's going to be a positive, right? So when you simplify it and take it out of the absolute values, you just leave it as it is, pi minus 3. What about the one right below? 2 minus pi. Overall, originally, that number inside the absolute value is going to be a negative. So what you need to do is you need to change the sign of both terms. That's take the opposite of that. So the 2 becomes a negative 2. The negative pi becomes a positive pi. If I change the order, I get my solution. And I would write pi minus 2 outside of absolute values as my answer. And so that's what you're going to be asked to do here, is to write your answer without using absolute value symbols. Okay, notice in this next example, what I've done is I've also will include some irrational numbers that are somewhat close to each other. And the easiest way to think of those is to not necessarily to work with the numbers that are in the radicals, but work with the numbers that aren't. The square root of 9, if you think of this as the absolute value of root 78 minus root what? What is this? If you were to write the 9 in a square root, it would be what? 81. So once you get it into that form, can you tell, would your original number be positive or negative? It would be negative, right? So you're going to change the sign of both terms. So a negative root 78, a positive 9. And so that would be your solution. Okay, what about 4 minus root 13? What would that simplify to? Would it be 4 minus root 13, or would it be root 13 minus 4? 4 is what radical? So if you think of it as root 16 minus root 13, you can see, do you need to flip the order and change the sign? Nope, you just leave it as it is. It comes right out of those absolute values, and it's still a positive number.